Two women pin a struggling man to his bed, one gripping him by the hair as she drives a sword through his neck. Blood sprays across white bedsheets in wide arcs. His fist punches upward toward the maidservant. His mouth hangs open in a final, desperate moan. And through all of it, the woman holding the blade doesn't flinch. Not once. Many art historians consider this one of the most powerful paintings of the entire Baroque era, and one of the most unsettling images ever committed to canvas. Its name is Judith slaying Holofernes, and it was painted around 1620 by Artemisia Gentileschi, who was just 27 years old at the time. But what makes this painting truly extraordinary is not just the scene itself. It's the story of the woman who created it, because hidden inside the canvas are details that reveal something far deeper than a biblical story, a secret signature, a connection to one of the greatest scientists who ever lived, and an act of personal vengeance that took 400 years for the world to fully understand. The scene Artemisia chose to paint comes from the Book of Judith, a text found in the Catholic Bible. The story tells us that an Assyrian general named Holofernes had besieged the city of Bethulia and was on the verge of destroying its people. Judith, a young widow known for her beauty and her faith, devised a plan. She entered the enemy camp dressed in her finest garments, pretending to defect. Holofernes, captivated by her, invited her to a private banquet. He drank heavily, and when he finally collapsed into sleep, Judith seized his own sword. With the help of her maidservant, Abra, she struck twice, severing his head. She then carried it back to her people, who rallied and defeated the leaderless army. It's one of the most dramatic stories in all of Scripture, and Artemisia Gentileschi was not the first artist to paint it, but she was the first to make you truly believe it. Artemisia Gentileschi was born in Rome in 1593, the daughter of the painter Orazio Gentileschi, a respected colleague of Caravaggio himself. From a young age, her father recognized her extraordinary talent and trained her in his workshop, something almost unheard of for a girl in 17th century Italy. By the age of 17, she had already signed her first major painting, Susanna and the Elders, a work that displayed a maturity and emotional depth far beyond her years. But in 1611, her life was shattered. Agostino Tassi, a painter hired by her father to teach her perspective, attacked and assaulted her. When Tassi refused to marry her, which at the time was considered the only way to restore a woman's honor after that type of attack, her father took the case to court. What followed was a public trial that lasted for months. Artemisia was forced to testify in excruciating detail, while the court subjected her to a device called the Sibylle, metal rings tightened around her fingers to test whether she was telling the truth. And as the metal crushed the very hands she used to paint, she repeated the same words again and again. "It is true. It is true. It is true." Tassi was eventually found guilty, but his punishment was barely enforced, and he walked free within months. Artemisia, meanwhile, carried the weight of that public humiliation for the rest of her life. She left Rome, she moved to Florence, and threw herself into her art with a fury that would define everything she created from that moment forward. It was in Florence that she became the first woman ever admitted to the prestigious Accademia delle Arti del Disegno. And it was there, surrounded by the greatest minds in Italy, that she painted the work that would become her masterpiece. The composition is staggering. In the center of the canvas, Holofernes lies on a bed, his massive body writhing as the blade cuts into his neck. His face is contorted in agony, mouth open, brow furrowed, his eyes wide with the disbelief of a powerful man who has been overcome. To his right stands Judith. Her sleeves are rolled up to her elbows, her forearms tensed with effort. She's not turning away. She's not delicate. She's leaning into the act with the full weight of her body, gripping his hair with one hand and pressing the sword with the other. Her expression is focused, almost calm, the face of someone completing a task that must be done. And then there's Abra. In most versions of this scene by other artists, the maidservant is depicted as an old woman standing passively in the background. But Artemisia paints her as a young, strong, and physically involved woman, pinning Holofernes down with her own hands, her muscles straining against his desperate resistance. This is not a solo act. It's two women working together in solidarity against a man who is far larger and far more powerful than either of them. Now, if we compare this to Caravaggio's version, painted roughly 20 years earlier, the difference is astounding. In Caravaggio's scene, Judith holds the sword at arm's length, her face almost squeamish, as if she can't bear to close what she's doing. The old maidservant watches from behind. There's distance, hesitation. Artemisia Gentileschi eliminates all of that. She places both women in the center of the violence. There's no distance here and no hesitation, only force. Just a quick pause. If this painting hits you the way that it hit me, you should know that I carry a gallery quality reproduction of it on my website. You can also find other great masterpieces of the world and from the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, ones that I've handpicked for the channel and for my store. Every order ships free anywhere in the world, and every purchase is what keeps these videos coming. The link's right below in the description. All right, back to the painting. So here's where it gets wild. There are details in this painting that most people walk right past, and they change everything. The first is a small bracelet on Judith's forearm. If you look very closely, you can see that it's decorated with tiny cameo figures. Scholar Diane Apostolos Capodona has identified these figures as depictions of Artemis, the Greek goddess of the hunt. That's no coincidence. Artemis was the divine huntress, the protector of women, the avenger of those who'd been wronged. And of course, the painter's own name, Artemisia, is derived directly from this goddess. She signed herself into the painting as a hunter. The second hidden detail is even more remarkable. If you look carefully at the way the blood sprays from Holofernes' neck, you'll notice that it doesn't simply drip downward. It arcs outward in a wide, symmetrical curve. In 1996, scholars David Topper and Cynthia Gillis examined these arcs and discovered something astonishing. They follow nearly perfect mathematical parabolas. This matters because Artemisia was a close friend of Galileo Galilei. They were both members of the Accademia del Disegno in Florence, and by 1620, Galileo had already discovered the parabolic trajectory of projectiles, a finding he wouldn't publish for almost 2 more decades. Some scholars believe Artemisia consulted Galileo directly when painting this second version, using his unpublished science to make the blood spray physically accurate. She didn't just paint revenge, she painted it with the precision of a scientist. And then there's the question that art historians have debated for centuries. Many scholars, including the influential Mary Gerard, believe that Judith's face in this painting is a self-portrait of Artemisia, and that the face of Holofernes is modeled after Agostino Tassi, the man who had attacked her. If this interpretation is correct, then what we're looking at is not simply a biblical scene. It's a woman painting herself in the act of destroying the man who violated her. It's the most powerful act of artistic defiance in the history of Western art. When the painting was delivered to Cosimo II de' Medici, the Grand Duke of Tuscany, the reaction was immediate. The work was considered so intense, so confronting, that it was hidden from public view. It was placed in a dark corner of the Pitti Palace, where it remained for years. And Artemisia wasn't even paid on time. It took the personal intervention of her friend Galileo to finally secure the compensation she was owed. For centuries afterward, her first version of this same scene was attributed not to her, but to Caravaggio, because critics simply couldn't believe that a woman had painted something this powerful. So what are we really looking at here? I think it's more than a masterpiece. It's a declaration. Artemisia Gentileschi was told by the world that she was a victim, that her voice didn't matter, and that her pain would be forgotten. And she answered with a canvas so fierce that it frightened the most powerful family in Italy. Today, Judith slaying Holofernes hangs in the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, finally receiving the recognition it has always deserved. And Artemisia herself is now celebrated as one of the most important painters of the Baroque, not as a curiosity or a footnote, but as a true master. Drop me a comment below in the comment section. Do you see Artemisia's face in Judith? And if you could ask her one question about this painting, what would it be? Next up, we're covering Caravaggio's own version of this exact scene. Two painters, the same story, but told in radically different ways. I'll see you there.